A 2023 Harvard study found that out of everything it looked for as far as the root causes to help people have longer, healthier lives, the number one thing the study found that people should focus on is their relationships. So to help solve some of the relationship crisis that we have around the world, I have created this upcoming 3-day eternal honeymoon extravaganza. I am bringing together 15 speakers from around the world in the love, sex, intimacy, and relationship space to help you finally have better passion, have better sex, have better connection, communication, intimacy, and more. And this event is normally $397 and it is on sale right now for $1. So I hope you will prioritize your relationships and join me at this epic event. Hey everybody, in this video, we're going to talk about the best ways to reduce stress. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I'm Dr. Diane, board certified sexologist and a libido doctor. And I want to talk about this in a few different ways. One, we have the obvious things from a standpoint of diet, lifestyle, supplements, etc. that can help. Two, we have the way we integrate and work in our lives and subtle internal shifts. And then three, what we can do for the power of oxytocin, which is our body's natural stress-reducing chemical. So I'm going to make this super actionable. You're going to want to stay to hear number three, because number three is really how we produce in our own body the antidote to cortisol. Cortisol gets a lot of stress in the media. Cortisol is our stress hormone. It is released as we get more and more stress. We do need cortisol to live. But what happens is as our stress continues to sustain for periods of time, the brain does not communicate correctly about the cortisol needed and seen, and we can have really high levels. And eventually, oftentimes, over chronic sustained stress, we can have really low levels. So what do we want to do from like a diet, lifestyle, supplement, nutrition standpoint? When we have cortisol imbalances, much of the time we want to make sure that we are balancing our blood sugar. And oftentimes when we have stress issues, many people respond the best by eating small meals frequently throughout the day. The reason for this is that cortisol, the hormone we're talking about in this video, it works to stabilize our blood sugar. So if our blood sugar crashes, our cortisol will go up to bring our blood sugar back to normal. And so if we are in a state of chronic stress where we have these cortisol imbalances and then we're using cortisol in this other way to balance our blood sugar all the time, that can be another way the body becomes depleted or dysregulated from that standpoint. It can add to the stress dysfunction. So oftentimes in these situations, frequent meals more often can be better. We do want to consider certain nutrients. Our B vitamin family, in particular B5, is extremely important. Magnesium can help with the stress response. So can vitamin C. One of my favorite things is to get an adrenal glandular. Adrenal glandulars are supplements that have microdoses of cortisol in them. And so it's almost like cortisol replacement therapy if your cortisol is on the low side. The only way to know if it's low is to test. So we want to make sure that you are getting proper testing. I do talk about testing pros and cons in my book, Want to Want It, which is on sale for right now. So make sure that you pick up your copy. I go so into detail on testing for cortisol, do's, do nots, etc. So know that that's a great resource for you. So those are some of the things as far as supplements. Now, lifestyle-wise, chronic long cardio tends to use a lot of cortisol. So oftentimes if people have cortisol dysfunction, they're going to do better with slower cardio, so things like walking versus running or biking. And we also have to be careful when we're having these adrenal imbalances, these cortisol imbalances, about how much HIIT or weight training we're doing. So the biggest thing to pay attention to is how you feel after you exercise. If you feel alive, if you feel excited, if you feel great, like you got to work out, but you still feel good, then the amount of exercise that you did is probably great. What happens to many people when they have cortisol imbalances is they work out and they crash afterwards, or they work out and they crash the next day afterwards. Now, if you did that, it's probably a sign that you pushed yourself more than your body is and your adrenals are prepared for. And that might be a sign that you need to dial it back. Now, remember, we don't know if whatever imbalance you're having is cortisol unless you test. So make sure you test. So those are some functional things you can do from a diet lifestyle standpoint. The other thing food-wise to remember is always think anti-inflammatory. So your paleo diets, your Mediterranean style diets are really good. Making sure you're eating organic, getting those toxins out, all of those things like toxins, for example, those are a stress on the body. That is another thing that is going to lead potentially to cortisol imbalances because it's a stressor, and cortisol is our stress hormone. So we want to remember all of that. Now, when it comes to our relationships, right? Another thing that is really important with cortisol, I should say our internal relationships, because another thing that's really important here is just a quick interlude, because I want to address that it is so common that people are struggling to prioritize their relationships and their intimate life between jobs and kids and caring for elderly parents and so much more. Sometimes it can just feel like a last thing on the to-do list. Now, if you're struggling with that, or if you're struggling with having better sex or having good orgasms or lasting longer or erectile dysfunction or pelvic pain or something else in the sex, emotional, relationship, intimacy space, you are definitely going to want to take a moment right now so you remember to sign up for the Eternal Honeymoon Extravaganza. I have 15 speakers that I've specially curated and picked from around the world for a very complete and holistic look and teachings and actionable steps from everything under the sun, sex, and relationships. So take a quick minute, go click on that link and register to make sure you remember, and I look forward to seeing you there. Now let's get back to our episode. How we are moving through life. So are we doing what in psychology we call the externalized locus of control, or do we have an internal locus of control? So what this means is a lot of times people, and it's very, very common through micro traumas that have happened throughout life, that we are looking for validation outside of ourselves. So the constant scrolling on the phone, the constant checking, the constant this. And if we get an email or a text from somebody that says they love us or that we did a great job, we get a dopamine hit and we feel great about ourselves. And then if we get something that is negative, we can find ourselves and many times crashing. So this is very hard on the stress response because we are our peace, and our nervous system is related then to things exteriorly. It's related to how people are perceiving us. And obviously those things matter. I'm not going to deny they don't. But the goal is to formulate so much of that self-worth that you are telling yourself that you are amazing, that you are telling yourself, you're not just telling yourself, you're feeling amazing. You're literally retraining your body to feel amazing, even in situations where something doesn't go your way, or you hear a bad, somebody says something bad. And you want to do that because anytime, if we're totally dependent upon the outside world for that validation, then our stress response is also dependent upon the outside world. And the more we do what in psychology is called the internalized locus of control, where we begin to say, hey, I am, worthy, I am peaceful, I am calm, I am happy, and teaching your nervous system how to generate those feelings internally, regardless of what happens outside. That is a huge way that we can find that stress can be reduced because now we are self-creating our peace. Now we are not dependent upon what is going on outside of us. And then the third thing, and I definitely encourage you to pick up your copy of my book for this, because I do go into this more, but I want to talk about it here too, of course, which is orgasms. So, and I say this because I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I mentioned the hormone that can balance stress. So our body is a master regulator, right? So of course, if we have things that can, these stress hormones that make us feel certain ways, anxious, overwhelmed, of course, our body has the antidote. That's what our body does. It's amazing. So the antidote to stress hormone is oxytocin. Oxytocin lowers or regulates cortisol. It brings it back into balance, right? It helps us feel good. It's the antidote to anxiety. It's been shown to lessen anxiety. It's been shown to improve depression. So one of the reasons why I talk about sex so much on this channel, there's a lot of reasons, but one of them is because of oxytocin. Because oxytocin, while we can generate it, this hormone that balances so much, while we can generate it with long hugs, like 20-second hugs, or long kisses, like 6-second kisses, while these things generate oxytocin, these long hugs will generate 20 to 50% increase of oxytocin in the blood. Sounds pretty good, until we realize that oxytocin, when we orgasm, increases by 200 to 500% in our blood. So one of the best ways that we actually can regulate stress, and one of the most natural ways, it's not talking about putting anything inside of you, it's not talking about spending all sorts of money, it's talking about using your body's innate way of healing, is through pleasure. So I know what you're saying, like many of you are probably saying like, well, I don't have time for that, Dr. D, and I get that, right? It's very hard when, for most people, it's a combination, especially in 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, etc. It's a combination of like kids, elderly parents, jobs, careers, homes, all the stressors that come with all of those things. What I'm telling you here is that if we are going to prioritize something in our life, we put it into our schedule, we make a plan, right? So we don't go to the gym usually spontaneously. Like sometimes people do, but it's usually like, hey, I'm going to go to the gym at 5 o'clock today when I get out of work, or I'm going to wake up early and go to the gym before I hit work, right? That's how exercise, and that's how most people get it in, is with a plan. So the same thing is with pleasure. And the way we start orienting to this is, do we want to be in a stressed out, overwhelmed state for the rest of our lives? Do we want to be so overwhelmed that we are not enjoying the beautiful moments? This has been like really coming up for me a lot at 45. I'm 45 right now. And it's been coming up a lot for me because midlife is just, I think that it does that, right? Where it's like, we take a look at our lives and say like, well, what is this going to be like? What is the second half going to be like? I'm not going to be here forever. And it's just really been a reflective time for me to say, I want to make sure that I am prioritizing what is the most important thing to me, which is my family and my friends and my community, to be fully present when I'm with them. And one of the ways we do that best is not being in overwhelm and managing our stress and using the body's chemicals. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope it's been inspiring. I hope you will pick up a copy of my book. And please do subscribe to my channel, because all these things I'm talking about around like orgasms and how to have better sex and these things, you'll find them throughout my channel. So please do subscribe. I talk in more detail in these topics on other videos. And I'll see you all again real soon. Ciao for now.